Alex was focused on working in his apartment, trying to finish a report before the end of the day. The notification sound from his phone rang out, but he didn't pay much attention, thinking it was just a regular message or spam email. However, the repeated vibrations annoyed him, forcing him to check his phone. The screen displayed a terrifying message: "Emergency alert. Seek immediate shelter. Toxic precipitation warning in your area." This is not a drill. At first, Alex was skeptical. He glanced out the window of his apartment and saw that the sky looked normal, just slightly darker than usual. He thought it might be a mistake by the weather service, as similar false alarms had happened before. However, his phone vibrated again, instructing him to stay away from windows, cover his skin, and avoid moving. A strange feeling, a mix of anxiety and confusion, washed over him. Alex tried to access local news websites or social media for more information, but none of them would load. At that moment, he heard strange noises coming from outside the window. It wasn't the gentle patter of normal rain but a sharp, metallic sound, as if tiny pieces of metal were hitting the glass. He stood up, leaving his coffee cup forgotten on the desk, and moved closer to the window. The strange raindrops left circular marks on the glass, seemingly eating away at the first layer of the double-paned window. Alex couldn't believe his eyes. The raindrops weren't just water, they had corrosive properties like acid, slowly penetrating the glass. His phone vibrated again, this time with a call from Carla, a colleague he hadn't spoken to in a while. Her voice was frantic and urgent. "Alex, are you seeing this rain? Don't go near it. I just saw someone run to their car and..." Her voice cut off abruptly as if something horrifying had just happened. Alex began to realize that this was no ordinary situation. The toxic rain was becoming more dangerous by the minute, and he needed to act quickly to protect himself. As Alex moved closer to the window to get a better look, he noticed that the raindrops were far from normal. They didn't fall gently like ordinary rain but made sharp, metallic sounds, as if someone were throwing tiny pieces of metal at the glass. The raindrops left strange, circular marks on the surface, seemingly corroding and destroying the first layer of the double-paned window. Alex had never seen anything like it before. He leaned in closer and noticed that the raindrops weren't just sitting on the surface of the glass. They were slowly eating through it, leaving tiny holes. This terrified Alex, as the window glass wasn't something that could be easily destroyed. These raindrops had a powerful corrosive effect, like acid, yet they were falling from the sky. He couldn't comprehend what was happening. Outside, the rain began to fall faster. The sound of the raindrops hitting the building resembled the sizzling of meat on a hot pan. A car alarm blared somewhere but was abruptly silenced. In the distance, Alex heard someone scream, but he couldn't see what was happening. Alex turned back to the window and noticed that the raindrops weren't just corroding the glass. They left behind a strange, oily sheen, like the colors of a rainbow on the surface of oil. One raindrop hit the window right in front of him, completely penetrating the glass and leaving a perfect circular hole. He stepped back, feeling a surge of fear. His phone vibrated again, this time with another emergency alert. Contamination levels rising. Seal all entry points. Do not attempt to make contact with precipitation. Alex realized that the toxic rain wasn't just dangerous, it could have unimaginable consequences. These raindrops weren't just destroying physical objects but had the potential to transform everything they touched. He began to worry for his safety and the safety of those around him. As the toxic rain continued to fall, the scene outside Alex's apartment window became increasingly chaotic and terrifying. Desperate screams echoed from afar, mingling with the sizzling sound of the rain corroding everything it touched. Alex looked outside and saw people running wildly through the streets, trying to find shelter. Their clothes smoked where the rain had touched them, and some fell to the ground, convulsing in pain. From the window, Alex witnessed a horrifying sight. A woman standing in the middle of the road, arms raised, face tilted toward the sky as if welcoming the rain. She laughed loudly, a strange, high-pitched, hysterical laugh. As the raindrops hit her, her skin began to change, becoming translucent like wax, and something beneath it started to move. Alex couldn't look away from the terrifying scene, even though his instincts told him to. Inside the apartment, Alex tried to contact Carla again, but his phone had completely lost signal. He felt helpless and panicked, unsure of what to do next. Suddenly, there was a loud knock at the door. "Alex, please open the door." "It's me, Carla." A frantic and fearful voice called from the other side. Alex hesitated, unsure whether to open the door, as the hallway outside might already be compromised by the corrosive rain. Finally, Alex decided to open the door. Carla stood there, clutching her young son tightly. Both were drenched and terrified. "We need to get inside now," Alex said, pulling them in and slamming the door shut. When he glanced into the hallway, he saw dark, strange stains spreading across the ceiling, as if the toxic rain was eating through the building's structure. Inside the apartment, Alex and Carla tried to stay calm and figure out what to do. But the panic only grew as they heard the sound of shattering glass and screams from other apartments. Some of their neighbors had already been affected by the toxic rain, and they were changing in bizarre ways. Their skin became translucent, their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and they began to laugh uncontrollably, just like the woman outside. Alex realized that the toxic rain wasn't just destroying the physical world, it was transforming people into something else, something no longer human. He and Carla knew they couldn't stay in the apartment forever, but outside was no safer. Panic and uncertainty overwhelmed them as the toxic rain continued to fall, bringing with it unimaginable dangers. When the toxic rain began to pour, Alex quickly realized that all means of communication had been cut off. He tried to access local news websites to gather more information about the situation, but none of them would load. Social media, weather websites, and even emergency news channels were all down. His phone kept displaying no signal, and emergency calls couldn't go through. Carla was also in a state of panic. She told Alex what she had seen from her apartment window. A man trying to run to his car, but just seconds after being exposed to the toxic rain, he collapsed, his flesh beginning to transform and emit smoke. Carla's voice was shaky and filled with fear before the call abruptly cut off. Alex tried to reach out to anyone else, but to no avail. He realized he was completely isolated, with no way of knowing what was happening outside. He tried turning on the radio, but all he heard was static and repeated warnings to seek shelter. The loss of communication not only left Alex feeling helpless but also intensified his fear and confusion. He didn't know if local authorities were organizing rescue efforts or if anyone was trying to help those trapped like him. Everything seemed to be spiraling out of control. Alex tried to search for information from other sources. He rummaged through books and survival guides, hoping to find clues on how to deal with the toxic rain. However, it all seemed futile, as the toxic rain was unlike any natural phenomenon he had ever encountered. The isolation and lack of information made Alex feel as if he were trapped in a nightmare. Inside the apartment, Alex and Carla tried to stay calm and figure out a plan. But the panic only grew as they heard the sound of breaking glass and screams from other apartments. Some of their neighbors had already been affected by the toxic rain, and they were changing in bizarre ways. Their skin became translucent, their eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and they began to laugh uncontrollably, just like the woman outside. Others weren't spared from the same fate. A man tried to run to his car, but just seconds after being exposed to the toxic rain, he collapsed, his flesh beginning to transform and emit smoke. Others stood still, faces tilted toward the sky, as if welcoming the transformation. They were no longer themselves but had become strange creatures with translucent skin and glowing eyes. Alex realized that the toxic rain wasn't just destroying the physical world, it was transforming people into something else, something no longer human. He and Carla knew they couldn't stay in the apartment forever, but outside was no safer. Alex's apartment was slowly being eaten away by the toxic rain, with dark stains spreading across the ceiling and the window glass completely destroyed. They needed to find a safer place to take shelter. Alex decided to take Carla and her son to the nearby community center, a sturdy building made of concrete walls and metal shutters. He hoped it could withstand the toxic rain at least for a little while. However, getting to the community center was no easy task. When they stepped out of the apartment, the hallway had already become a dangerous place. The ceiling was corroded and toxic rainwater dripped down, forming strange black puddles on the floor. Alex and Carla had to move carefully, avoiding areas that were heavily damaged. Eerie laughter echoed from both ends of the hallway, making them even more terrified. When they reached the stairwell, a group of transformed people blocked their path. Their skin was translucent, their eyes glowed unnaturally, and they stood still, faces tilted toward the sky as if welcoming the rain. Alex and Carla had to find another way, but every step was fraught with danger. Finally, they reached the community center, but it wasn't as safe as they had hoped. The concrete walls were starting to show dark stains, and the metal shutters were slowly corroding. Inside, a group of survivors was trying to fend off the encroaching toxic rain, but they were slowly losing control. Alex and Carla knew they couldn't stay here forever. They needed to find another shelter, a place where the toxic rain couldn't reach them. As Alex and Carla struggled to survive in the toxic rain, they realized that the strange transformation wasn't limited to those who had direct contact with the rain. it was gradually affecting them as well. Alex looked down at his arm and saw patches of his skin becoming translucent, revealing strange patterns moving beneath the surface. A sharp pain radiated from a small wound caused by a drop of the toxic rain, and he knew he was being contaminated. Carla wasn't spared from the same fate. She noticed strange discoloration spreading across her skin, and her eyes began to emit an eerie glow. Her son, fortunately, remained unaffected, but they knew their time was running out. This transformation wasn't just physical, it was altering their minds as well. Alex felt strange thoughts creeping into his mind, as if something was trying to take control of him. Others in the community center were undergoing the same process. Some had fully transformed, their skin translucent and their eyes glowing. They stood motionless, faces tilted toward the sky as if waiting for something. Unnatural laughter echoed from them, a sound that didn't belong to this world. Alex and Carla knew they couldn't stay here forever, but outside was no safer. They decided to find a way to leave the community center, hoping to find a safer place. The transformed people were wandering everywhere, and the toxic rain continued to fall, corroding everything in its path. Alex and Carla had to move carefully, avoiding heavily damaged areas and the transformed individuals. In their desperation, Alex realized that this transformation wasn't just a disaster, it was a metamorphosis. The strange patterns beneath his skin seemed to tell a story, one of change and evolution. He didn't know if this was the end or the beginning of something greater. Carla and Alex continued to move, hoping to find safety. But with each step they felt the transformation spreading through their bodies. They knew their time was running out, and they had to find a way to survive before they fully became part of the toxic rain. 3 days after the toxic rain stopped, the outside world had completely changed. The transformed people, with their translucent skin and glowing eyes, stood silently, faces turned toward the sky as if awaiting something monumental. They were no longer human but had become strange creatures, united in an eerie silence. Alex realized that he, too, was undergoing the same transformation. His skin was now completely translucent, and the strange patterns beneath it moved as if telling a story he was only beginning to understand. He felt a strange connection with the others, as if they were sharing a collective consciousness. Carla, who stood beside him, had also fully transformed. Her eyes emitted an unnatural glow, and though she no longer spoke, Alex knew she was still aware of everything. The world around them had changed as well. Metal and glass structures had warped into bizarre, artistic forms, reflecting light in inexplicable ways. Even the concrete was no longer the same, its surface rippled like the skin of a living creature. Alex felt that everything was becoming part of a larger entity, one that he and the others were gradually merging into. The patterns beneath Alex's skin grew clearer, as if conveying a message. He began to understand that the toxic rain wasn't a random disaster but part of a larger process, a transformation of the entire world. The transformed people weren't victims but participants in a grander event. However, a few people remained unaffected. Carla's son was one of them. He was still human, and Alex knew he was the last hope for a different future. But with each passing day, Alex felt his connection to the old humanity fading. He knew he was becoming part of something greater and that there was no turning back. Meanwhile, the sky began to change. Strange dark clouds appeared, moving with a clear purpose. Alex and the others felt a strange excitement in their bodies, as if they were being prepared for a new phase. They knew the toxic rain was just the beginning, and something even bigger was about to happen. Alex stood there, looking out at the transformed world, and felt an odd sense of peace. He knew he was becoming part of a greater entity, and though he didn't fully understand it, he accepted the change. Alongside Carla and the others, he awaited what was to come as the old world faded into a new reality. When the storm arrived, the first raindrops were completely different from before. They were larger, almost solid, and filled with swirling colors like miniature universes. These raindrops didn't corrode things, they transformed them. The window where Alex stood wasn't destroyed but instead became alive, reflecting light in inexplicable ways. Alex felt a deep connection with the storm. The patterns beneath his skin reacted to each raindrop, as if they were communicating with one another. He realized this wasn't the end but a metamorphosis, a complete transformation of the world and everything in it. The storm marked the beginning of a new phase, and Alex and the others were ready. They were no longer human but part of a greater entity, one being reshaped by the storm. The storm wasn't destruction, it was the dawn of a new world. Alongside Carla and the others, Alex stepped into this new world, no longer afraid but with a deep sense of acceptance and understanding. The old world was gone, and a new era had begun.